Returned for plenary, the proposal for state police re-emerged as the central issue on the agenda.
Do solemnly swear that I will be faithful.
The Senate President begins with the swearing-in of 4 new senators following the recent by-elections conducted by INEC. Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa of Ondo State was among dignitaries present to witness the ceremony. Moments after, attention shifts to the state police bill, with lawmakers voting to exclude governors from witnessing the proceedings from inside the chamber. The 3 governors of Ondo, Ogun and Kaduna states are subsequently allowed to stay and observe.
Plus means yes, affirmation. 0 means abstain.
The test run is indicative of a system's dysfunction, prompting the Senate's leader to move a motion for manual voting.
Or some of our colleagues whose machines are not working. I am moving that we give every distinguished senator to answer his or her father's name by doing manual voting.
The bill is considered after the Senate's leader presents the general principles as well as the submission of the report by the Deputy Senate President.
The report of the Committee on Constitutional Review on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria Alteration Bill 2026 SB 1055. I so move. Flag of the Senate.
As voting commences, there is a lone dissenting vote from the senator representing Kebbi South Senatorial District, who had previously voiced his opposition to the bill. The senator subsequently exited the chamber. The bill subsequently scales second and third reading after a clause-by-clause consideration and a broad backing by lawmakers.
Be counting, count people to hear you. Count.
Of what we will also pass today is also to make sure that in those aspects of the Constitution, because I've seen 2 or 3 where it says that the president will merely write a letter and take over, or merely write a letter to no, we think that not just the president but that power must also be shared with the National Assembly.
What we are merely doing now is to see that all this pseudo state police that is created across the nooks and crannies of the country metamorphose into state police.
A key provision of the bill empowers state governors to appoint commissioners of police for their respective states, subject to confirmation by state houses of assembly. Under Clause 17 of the proposed constitutional amendment, a state police service shall be headed by a commissioner of police of the state, appointed by the governor of the state on the recommendation of the National Police Council. With the passage, the legislation replaces the existing Nigeria Police Force framework with a dual structure comprising of a federal police service and the state police services. From the National Assembly, Gloria Omezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, that was the lead story on most of the headlines. Well, that is the lead story on most of the headlines of the dailies this morning. The big story from yesterday that the Senate has finally made way for the decentralization of the Nigeria Police Force as we now know it, and state authorities will now be allowed to set up their own police force. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily, your daily dose of sunshine, even though it's raining here in the Federal Capital Territory. I'm Maukwe Oguyusu.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Kayla Megwa. Indeed, the biggest story in the country. Now, there are issues with this particular bill, and many people have been speaking up. The decentralization of the police force is one that everybody has been asking for. A lot of people have been saying this is the way to handle insecurity across this country. The states have to be involved in it. And if they have the control of the police, it will be better to manage the situation. There are fears of abuse. There are fears, of course, that many state governors will turn this into their personal army, so to speak. And then there's the bigger issue. Some people have said it is not the right thing to do to just create the same structure of the police that we have at the federal level, at the state levels. That if we've done that, then we've basically shot ourselves in the foot. What kind of changes are we seeing to the structure of the police force in the state levels? And what kind of checks? Well, the amendment, our guest yesterday said he didn't want us to call it an alteration. He said he wanted us to call it an amendment. What kind of amendments have been done to this bill to be able to put our governors in check? Is there something that is in there? I looked through the thing, Mark, and it did feel like, yes, there are checks that have been put in place, but the enforcement of those checks, how do we get state governors to understand that this amount of authority, this amount of power that they've been given comes with the responsibility to not use the police force as their personal army, also not stifle opposition with the police force. And then the police force themselves, the training required for the amount of authority they're about to have among the people in the state. Do they have that? Is that being worked on? And what is going to be the future of our security situation as a result of these changes?
A lot of questions to ask, Kayla, a lot of issues to raise with it. But one thing we do know for sure is that state governors will no longer have the excuse that they are not chief security officers in their state. What a number of people will be looking to see are not state governors who are like sitting ducks in their states when security issues are happening. The issues of kidnapping, terrorism, people are hoping that they will get a handle on it. So whatever it is that happens politically, whatever this is going to cost us politically, and while we're trying to handle that, what a lot of Nigerians will be looking to see is that they are safer, at least they feel safer with regards to security in their homes, in their villages, in their communities. And I believe that this is the biggest reason why this particular amendment has now sailed through. But while we keep tabs on that particular development, the issue of the state police, and we'll be getting someone to speak on it later on in the program, let's not forget that only one senator, was very clear in his dissension on this particular matter. We'll speak to that much later as we progress in the program. But politics is also still very much on the front burner, Kayla, and I think it's for one of these reasons that we have the Labour Party here with us this morning. The politicians are always wondering, but I'm sure that they'll also have, a thing or two to say about this issue of state police. Do smaller political parties feel threatened by this development? Well, we have joining us this morning Mr. Ken Eluma Asogwa, who is the National Publicity Secretary of the Labour Party. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Markway. Good morning, Kayla.
Morning.
Good morning, Nigerians.
It is good to see you. I wonder how you felt when you heard this particular news yesterday, after years and years of long debate as to whether or not we'll eventually get this state policing system. How did you feel when you heard that the Nigeria Senate has now passed this through?
I feel very elated. I felt very elated, and I commend the Nigerian Senate for this bold step. For me, it is the most consequential reform that Nigeria has taken, that has come out from the National Assembly of Nigeria since 1999, if not since 1979. The truth is that Nigeria has come of age not to centralize its policing system anymore. We are a population of about 225 million people. What we have is obsolete. We can't run it that way. I understand the fears that people express that the governors might try to abuse it, just the way they abuse the state electoral commissions. But with some institutional guardrails, I've not looked at the bill that was passed yesterday by the Senate, but I'm sure that with some institutional guardrails, we can contain the excesses of the governors. So, the most important thing is that what we have today is not working. So we could tinker with something else. If that one doesn't work too, it's a work in progress. We keep progressing. We can't just fold our arms because we feel that governors might abuse it and say that we should just centralize policing. When it's not working, it's obvious it's not working in Nigeria today.
Well, we'll see how that eventually, how that is managed, especially given our experience with the state electoral commissions, which you have highlighted. I want to believe that your party participated in the last elections in Ekiti, which just concluded. How did that go for you, and how do you feel about the readiness of the umpire as we go into 2027?
Well, we did not participate in Ekiti election.
Not even as an observer?
Yeah, we did participate as observer. We didn't because, but we didn't stand for that election for obvious reasons that, you know, we had a protracted crisis that rocked the party that lasted for almost 1 year. So when they were doing nominations for that, there was a leadership, so to speak, a vacuum within the ranks of the party. So, but all that has been sorted now. So, but we participated in other by-elections that took place across the federation. And even when we did not participate in Ekiti State, there were still some votes recorded for the Labour Party because INEC, I think it was a missed oversight on their side that they still included Labour Party in the ballot, and we still had a lot of votes that people, you know, cast for Labour Party. It shows that the party still has some good presence even when they were not on the ballot. So, but in rating the performance of the commission, the INEC, in the elections that took place last Saturday, I would say that there are some observable, you know, lapses that we saw there, and I would not want to cast the whole, you know, aspersion on the INEC. The leadership of the INEC as we have it today, you could see some sincerity of purpose. You could see someone who is trying to take INEC to the right direction. But I'm sorry to say this, the commission is peopled by people who are not, their visions are not in tandem with what the present leadership is, where he's trying to take the commission to. So I think I need to enjoin the man to look inwardly, because from me, like in Enugu North Senatorial District, for example, where I participated in that election, I observed everything that happened. You could see that, there was, INEC tried to, this man he's trying to sanitize the system, but the people you deployed to, the boots they put on ground, you see people trying to sabotage the system. And there was one thing that played out in Enugu North, for example, that was an obvious lapse on the side of INEC. The Labour Party was, literally excluded from that election, even when the election we went for was, Labour Party senator was the one that vacated that seat. He died on 18th November last year, Senator Okeza, late Senator Okeza. And we were the ones going to defend that, so to speak. And our logo was literally, our name was excluded on that ballot, in the ballot paper. And it's a complete, the Electoral Act is very clear on that the name and logo of political parties must appear on the ballot paper. I don't know if it was an oversight on the side of INEC, but speaking to the election itself, you see there were crises everywhere. Because I'm using Enugu North as a litmus test here, because that was the one I observed. And you see, someone told me yesterday that almost all the Sienna buses, in the entire of the south is emptied off in Nsukka because because of the number of thugs they imported. With more than 5,000 thugs imported into the senatorial district, and people just sat down literally, wrote results and dished it out to the public.
So that was the conduct of the political parties, not on INEC.
Yeah, like I said, but there were some collusions with some, INEC operatives. The truth is that you cannot rig an election as a political party solely without the collusion of some fifth columnists within the INEC. So, but like I said, the leadership of INEC centrally is, you see some sincerity of purpose, but the people he deploys, that's where the problem starts. So, and I need to caution him not to cocoon himself in his office and think that once he dishes out order, that the people you're sending to the field are going to carry out that order the way you have envisaged it.
So very interesting. Well, you've made a lot of complaints here, and damning complaints as well. Do you have proof of the things that you're saying? That thugs were brought in?
Like the one I told you that Labour Party was literally excluded in the election. We are already on our way to court. So. And that is where that's where the evidence will be turned back for Nigerians to see.
To see, you saw the thugs being brought in, 5,000 of them.
Yes,
I saw the buses being emptied at Nsukka.
Yes. This is an election that I witnessed. I was part and parcel of that election, and there was this air of fear everywhere. In short, as a matter of fact, the governor relocated from the seat of government in Enugu down to Nsukka. He stayed there for 2 nights.
Okay.
So you could see people who just literally try to muzzle out opposition. And to speak about Labour Party, even before the election, we issued out a statement. We were even excluded before that election. Yeah. And it took us going to court before we were reinstated. And that was something orchestrated by the man who has INEC in Enugu, not the national. And thankfully, it was the pressure that the national mounted on the man that they decided to send in our report.
So that's why you're commending INEC for including your candidate in the Enugu North senatorial body.
Yeah, we did.
Let's talk about your party, really. I saw Julius Aburi recently, and it does feel like this is still ongoing. This on pass between Julius Aburi-led, Nenadi Usman-led. It's still ongoing.
You saw him in a wedding, or?
No, we saw him on TV. He was speaking. He was speaking about the Labour Party. He was actually even talking a lot about, their plans for the future and whatnot. What's happening?
Well, I don't know, because as far as I'm concerned, Julius Aburi is done and dusted. We defeated him at the Court of Appeal.
Just had a press statement a few days ago where they were talking about, and I saw a large gathering of people who say they are members of the Labour Party, and they were talking about how this is really unfortunate for them and how they still have their candidates going. They're still planning towards an election.
Obiora Ifo,
Obiora
Ifo, Julius Aburi, Kennedy Ahanotu, the trio, they are on the run. The Nigerian police, they are looking for them.
And they were not on the run. I saw them on TV.
No. What I'm telling you, I don't know whether he saw him there live. I don't know. Anybody even people who are being looked for, they can walk into anywhere until the police gets them. But what I'm saying here is that Julius Aburi, there is an impersonation going on here. Like I told you, in April, he lost at the Court of Appeal. And as I speak to you, there is no pending appeal at the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Other than what he said that he was going on appeal, there is no pending appeal against Nenadi Usman's leadership of the party. So, on what basis is this running around and parading himself as national chairman and Obiora for issuing statements as national public secretary of the Labour Party? On what basis? We have lost at the Court of Appeal. You didn't go on appeal. INEC has said that this is who we know as the leader of the party. So on what basis are you confusing people? So as far as we know, we've gone beyond that stage. We are talking about how where Labour Party intends to take Nigeria to 2027. For me, Julius Aburi is a forgotten issue.
Just so we're clear, on the INEC portal, who's the national chairman of your party?
It is Nenadi Usman.
Who's your presidential candidate?
Dr. Chibuzo Okereke.
Dr. Chibuzo Okereke.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me also come in here in terms of, the Labour Party and, its preparation. Maybe not just the Labour Party. There was a by-election which happened last week. You have serious complaints about it. And sometimes I wonder, though, do you think it's really necessary for us to... This is just a by-the-way question. Do you really think that by-elections are necessary when we maintain in our country that it is political parties that win elections?
Well, are you saying whether the by-elections are necessary or whether putting political parties as winner of elections, whether it is necessary to have political parties or whether
if we say, for instance, that a political party is the one that has won an election,
yeah, sure.
And the person who's occupying that seat dies as a result of whatever happens, the person is no longer available to fill that seat. Do you think that we should be conducting elections to fill the seat, or don't you think that since it's the party that won, the party should perhaps produce someone, or maybe the person who came second runner-up in the previous election or first runner-up should just fill the position?
Well, I understand where you're going. The truth is that it's almost like a contradiction to say that it is party that wins the election. And at the same time, when the flag bearer of the party, maybe when he wins and dies, and you'll be required to go for an election, and that person went through a process of nomination by the party, ideally, the person that came second should have even been sworn in. But the truth is that the natural thing that should happen is that people must go to ballots to be elected by the people. So this is my own personal opinion now, if someone who is holding a public office dies, I expect that there should be a by-election. You should present the candidate for people to vote. That is why I frown at always people, Nigerian court declaring people winners of elections. People who did not participate in an election, we participated and the people did not vote for you. Then it shouldn't, the court has no reason whatsoever.
So in every single situation, the person must, another election must be conducted. It shouldn't be like, how we have governors. Governors always have deputies, and should anything happen to a governor or a president, as the case might be, it is automatic that the deputy fills the slot. There is no need to conduct any such thing again.
The reason why the deputy does not need to stand for a fresh election to go in when
because
the governor died,
deputy was on the same ticket.
Yes, he was on the same ticket and he was elected. The people looked at the ticket and said, okay, you have a good deputy and you are qualified.
Do we really look at the deputies, in all honesty? Let's be very frank with ourselves. Do we really look at the deputies in Nigeria, or we're looking at the main person? Maybe for the presidency, you know, deputies are hugely significant to the victory that a candidate eventually secures. But in many governorship seats, do we really look at that? I'm just wondering if it's something that we should take a second look at.
Well, on paper, yeah, on paper we do. But I understand what you're saying. In practice, people really do not really look at who your deputy is in most cases. But in some places, you still have people field deputies that they think are bringing something on board. So I think it's a mixed bag of what people think.
Well, it's an aside question. I was just wondering whether you think it's something that we should take a second look at. But given what you have now experienced in these elections, what are some of the things that you would want us to guard against as we go into 2027? Do you have, you know, things that you want to tell the political class? Because it's not INEC who imported these dogs. These hyenas that you allege were finished in Unsuka. You know, we're not available in Unsuka. We do not know what is going to be the scale, you know, come 2027, especially when we know that the security agencies are going to be spread thin. And you also said, well, you also had an eye on Ekiti, even though you didn't field any candidates there. Are there any things that your party has observed that you would like us to pay particular attention to as we go into 2027?
Is the security of, policing of votes and security. You know, I saw something that happened in Ekiti election where even the EFCC officials were literally chased out. So, I think...
You saw it?
No, I mean, I read that already, sorry. I read that in the papers. The EFCC complained that their operatives who tried to go to certain polling units were chased out by people who came there to rig elections, so to buy votes. So I think EFCC should be giving greater roles in elections. This can be captured in the Electoral Act, because the truth is that vote buying has come to stay in Nigeria if nothing is done to checkmate it. It's a new normal now that we are living with. And you know, laws are made to confront challenges in society. So if we have identified vote buying as the major problem we are having now in election, thuggery is almost becoming, it's almost receding. The new one they've introduced is vote buying. And if that is the case, and we have an anti-corruption watchdog that is, prepared to do that, we should, give them some greater roles, statutorily captured in the Electoral Act that they can play some roles during the election. So, and it's not late. We still have about 6 months to this election. So this 2026 Electoral Act can still go back. The people who passed it within 48 hours the last time can still pass a new one within 12 hours to get it signed by the president. So that is on the one side. Then I think the Nigerian politicians need to reform themselves, because no matter how INEC tries to conduct transparent elections, as long as politicians, keep indulging in all this brigandage, it will be difficult for INEC rather, to deliver a transparent process, no matter what they try to do.
Well, just so we can update the people who are watching us right now, Mr. Obiora just sent a message. He says he wants a right of reply because he wants to be able to respond to what you said about him being on the run and the Labour Party under the Aburi leadership.
I don't know what he means.
So he's saying that he wants the right of reply.
Well, I don't know what he means by right of reply.
But
I am aware that the police are investigating a petition by the Labour Party about the invasion of the party secretariat by that group. I am aware that police, they are investigating acts of impersonation by people who come out on TVs, on newspapers to say that they are National Police Secretary of Labour Party when they are not.
In any case,
who are claiming
just
to hold leadership positions in the party when they are not holding anyone.
Well, just for Mr. Obiora, who's watching us right now, you do have the right to come here. We'll be inviting you over so you can give your own side of the story as well, so we can balance out this conversation.
And I hope the day he will be coming will be made public, so that the police will come here to pick him.
He's going to have to respond to you on that one. So just generally. And another thing, your national chairman, Nana Usman, I can't remember the last time I saw her. We need to see her talk more to the to the media. What's going on there?
She does. It's just that every political party now, I can agree with me that every political party now is so busy with political party internal activities of the party, beginning
but we're seeing even the APC national chairman, even the PDP, we're seeing a lot of them talking. But we hardly ever see her come out.
She's around.
The last time I saw her on TV was here.
And
it was last year.
After Channels TV, she's been on Arise, she's been on TVC, and other television houses.
Well, we're extending an invitation to her. We would really like to have her.
I'm sure she's listening to it. She's watching this program, yes. and that is really extended.
Yeah. So in the build-up to 2027, do you think your house is going to be in order?
The house is already in order. You see, I think I have a bone to pick with the way media tries to amplify the activities of these guys. The house is in order. If people lay claims, attach appellations to their names, we shouldn't have to validate it. These people are non-existent as far as I'm concerned. The Labour Party has moved on. Like I said, all the institutions of democracy we have in Nigeria, they've recognized our leadership. So where are they coming from? So if someone sits in comfort of his room to say, I'm the national chairman of the Labour Party, we shouldn't help that person to validate that claim.
I see what you mean, but usually what we see, most parties say, and I think it was a bit of that was in your statement after you won at the Court of Appeal, was that you would like to reconcile everybody. You're extending an arm of friendship and fellowship, and
And we did, and a couple of them, came back to the mainstream leadership of the party, but some few renegades decided to stay back.
Fair enough. Well, we'll keep tabs with your party, and we'll see how prepared you get as we move towards the 2027 elections. Hopefully, we'll also hear from your presidential candidate and what his plans are for the 2027 elections and the Nigerian electorate. But we have to thank you very much for coming on the program this morning. Mr. Ken Eluma-Sogwa is the National Publicity Secretary of the Labour Party. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
We take a break this morning, and when we come back, we'll be speaking with Laulu Akande, who joins us all the way from the United States. When we come back from this break, please stay with us. Laulu Akande joins us now. He's a former presidential aide and also the host of Channels Television's Inside Sources. Good morning, and it's good to see you this morning. I know that you have been asking for some time that the president be bullish about this issue of state police, that he should push it through the same way he pushed through the tax reforms issue. I don't know how, are you satisfied given what has now transpired on the floor of the Nigerian Senate?
Thank you, Margaret, and good morning, Nigerians. Certainly, it's a bit of progress now that the presidency has sent the bill on state police to the National Assembly, and of course, we've seen the pace at which the National Assembly, both chambers have taken the issue. So that is good. You will wish that this happened maybe a year or two before now, but hey, better late than never. I think the other issue that we ought to be concerned about now is the transparency of this process. I've read a few concerns about the fact that people don't really know the details of what is contained in the bill. I'm not sure whether there were, public sittings and the kind of opportunity that people have for public hearing for what is in the bill. I think there's a bit of concern about that, and that is what I think we should try to. They should try to sort out, just so we have a fair and transparent process for people to know what the details of what is being passed is. I think that's the only issue that I have at this point.
Isn't that a little too late for that now? Because right now it looks like we have a fait accompli on our hands. If it's already done, What can we do about it if we're not satisfied?
Yeah, well, so it's still going to the states, for concurrence, which means that there is still an opportunity to make corrections, amendments, as it were. And we have to make the point that a public hearing ought to have taken place, so that people, civil societies, interested stakeholders would have had an opportunity to contribute to the bill itself. So as we are speaking now, people don't have that kind of information. Yes, there is a national consensus that we should have state police, essentially, but the details, who does what are the control mechanisms, how do you ensure that the governors, don't abuse it, what is the relationship between the state and the federal police, and all of those things. These are issues that ought to be fairly publicly debated and people given the opportunity to contribute. Now, that has not happened at the level of the federal legislature. So I hope that as it goes to the states, we get an opportunity to correct that.
We'll be looking forward to that, Kayla.
Yes, so I want to be able to get you to talk about this Pastor Adeboye's call for Global Anti-Terror Alliance. So Pastor Enoch Adeboye is formally urging the United States and the Western Coalition to launch an urgent security partnership with Nigeria to defeat systematic terrorism. Maybe you could expand on that. Were you there when this call was made, and what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, thank you, Kayla. Good to see you. So there is this Save Nigeria group, that has been working with the U.S. government, which is made up of Nigerians in the U.S. and some Americans who are also concerned about what it is that is happening around insecurity in Nigeria. So they held a gala on Tuesday, and yes, I was there. I also spoke at the event. And what was remarkable at this event was the passion and the body, that Pastor Adeboye shared. I imagine publicly for the first time, the passion. He spoke for over 25 minutes, and he spoke about his own pain as the leader of a church whose members and pastors have been victims, of extreme violence, and how he had to hold his own outrage, how he had to hold his own outrage, not burst out, because of how much pain he's had to carry. And so he used that platform, in Washington, D.C. to say that, look, it's good a thing that the Americans are helping us. He actually commended President Trump, because he said that he's a good politician because he does what he says he would do. And then he went ahead to say that, look, the Americans should continue to help Nigeria, and as a matter of fact, should get some kind of global coalition, of their own allies and Nigeria's friends across the world to come together and help Nigeria sort out, this problem of terrorism, banditry, this killing, this bloodletting, So that was the point. And yes, I was in the room. And in my whole contribution, I did say that when we call attention to some of these things that are going on in Nigeria, the insecurity, the killings, the violence, we don't do it to bring a bad name to the government, but we do it because we are human beings. We cannot ignore it, and we will accept any kind of help from any quarters that can help us to curb the violence. And it was a very important meeting because it had quite a number of American politicians, had a number of policymakers, from the U.S. government, and a lot of Nigerians, both from Nigeria and in the United States, attended. As a matter of fact, the ambassador of Nigeria was also represented, and he gave a very detailed speech.
Yeah. So
it was a very impressive.
I mean,
event.
Mr. Laulu, the criticism, and since this came out, people have been talking about it. Help is not free. Are we saying we're accepting help regardless of what we have to pay for it?
Well, okay, Kela, I don't know what you have in mind as to what we have to pay for it. We do have friends, in the international community, so often people form this kind of alliance coming together to solve what is actually not just a Nigerian problem, as we know. It's a global problem. It's a problem that even has a lot to do with what is happening in the Sahel, which then affects that region of Africa. And then, of course, there are terrorist groups that have anchors around the Sahel and on the tip of Nigerian border that are also active elsewhere, in the world, against working against American interests in some instances. Yeah, so it's a global problem. It's an international problem, and so it's not a bad thing or unusual thing to have people come together to deal with it. And I don't really see, what kind of payments that we have to make that is untoward so far. It doesn't affect our sovereignty. The federal government themselves have, yielded to this kind of collaboration. Don't forget that currently we have a U.S.-Nigeria joint working group led from our side by the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, and led on the side of the Americans by the Undersecretary of Politics, Mrs. Hall. So, this collaboration is already there. Pastor Adeboye is saying that, look, let's make it stronger. Let's make it stronger. Let's make it more global.
Indeed, I'm sure that people will continue to keep tabs on that particular development, especially, it wasn't so much the fact that help is not free. Whilst people, of course, are a little skeptical on that particular count, I think it was the manner in which the help came, the very controversial statement that was made as to whether or not there was a genocide targeted specifically at Christians. I'm unsure if we have been able to lay that particular baby to bed now. Do you think that we have been able to douse sufficiently and there is a greater understanding that help is needed, whether or not we agree that there is a genocide or there isn't one?
Well, I think that we are getting close to that point where that that controversy is sort of mellowing. Because if you listen to the kind of exchanges, even from the point of view of people who spoke for government, why they don't come out to say, yes, we know that there is genocide. The rhetoric has changed to recognize the fact that indeed these are Nigerians, whether they are Christians or Muslims or whatever, that are being killed. So that's the controversy is still there somewhere, but I think it has mellowed from the mainstream conversation to some kind of development of a consensus that look, they are Nigerians, and let's see how we can help stop the situation, the problem. So that's the impression that I get. Not that it has disappeared, but I think that narrative has mellowed down quite a bit.
Well, I think it's important that I use the statement, put the baby to bed, because a sleeping baby can always awake. And we hope that, when it awakes, we will have, something to really deal with that particular situation and have a frank conversation on the state of religious affairs in Nigeria. But let's, look at this particular story, which has been developing now for a few days. This trial of Omoyele Sowore, who is now in the custody of the correctional services. And we saw how a federal high court judge here in Abuja revoked his bail because he didn't show up in court, I think, once or twice or thereabout, without good cause. And his bail was revoked. And then we've been seeing the drama. And sometimes I'm a little curious as to why does it get this dramatic when it comes to his personality? Is it that security agencies are unaware on how to or what the procedure should be? Shouldn't we always see this confusion around arrest, around where he should be? We saw DSS officials involved. I don't know, I'm sure you must have been watching as I have, especially on social media, some of the videos that happen behind the scenes. Are you as confused as I am?
Well, maybe not confusion from my point of view, but certainly worried, that the federal government, and particularly the DSS, which, by the way, has a leadership that many of us are commended for its different style, of running the organization. But quite worried that, the DSS has allowed this to become much of a poor reflection of its own, seeming savvy, that many of us have commended. Honestly, I think that the matter could have been handled way better. Yes, while you could say that, well, look, calling the president a criminal, while you could say indeed that, hey, I mean, that's maybe, not technically, not correct. Technically, the man has not been convicted of any crime. While you can say that on the one hand, you can actually say on the other hand that, look, the man is a politician. Both the president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Omoyele Sowore, they are both presidents. As a matter of fact, they were both candidates in the last election. Probably will be both candidates again next year. So you should have managed, how you treated somebody like Sowore, and not have this kind of showcase that suggests some, Gestapo impressions, going after him, grabbing him, and all of those stuff. I'm not even sure that, making this a court case. I'm not sure that is the best way to resolve the matter. Look, I mean, we've had instances in this country where people, called the president, all kinds of names, and even, did all kinds of stuff. I remember in the case of former President Goodluck Jonathan, people, had a casket of him. There are images of him hung on a tree, and all kinds of stuff, all the way. I don't know that there's one particular president in Nigeria that did not suffer some kind of very harsh, description by opponents and by activists. So making the Sowore case to become much of a national showcase of embarrassment to the government, I don't think that it is the best way to handle this matter. That's my view. And you must give Sowore, the credit that the guy is willing and quite ready to take the scars, for his beliefs. And of course, he gets a platform, a bigger platform than normal when you treat him this kind of way. And I'm not sure that is to the advantage of the federal government. I don't think so. I think there is an error, in the way that this matter is being handled by the federal government, and I think they should rethink their approach.
Mr. Akande, you stated something that a lot of people have said. It didn't look good. It really didn't. But I spoke to our correspondent who was at the court, Emanuela Ekele, and just so we can get an idea of what it is that was going on at the time. And she said there were stones being put in different parts of the court. It did feel like there was going to be violence. That's how it felt. And that heightened sense may have also heightened the reaction from the DSS as well. I don't know. And you talked about what he said and the fact that many presidents have been criticized and whatnot, but there was something particular about the accusation in this matter. I'm not going to say the same things that Omoyele Sowore said, but those things were very particular. And some people have said, well, maybe it's important that many people realize that in your expression, in your freedom of expression, you have to now be a little bit careful. If you don't have proof that someone is a drug dealer, don't call the person a drug dealer. If you don't have proof of this, don't say this, almost like an example for people who genuinely would want to criticize government to be a bit more careful when they do so and not libel people in the process. What do you make of that?
Well, so when that is the perception of government, I think that government is entitled to pursue a case, but our argument is that ought to be done through the civil procedure, okay, not to try to criminalize free speech, and some of these acts, of law, like such as the cyber crime bill, has been criticized and portions of it declared, improper by, I think, the ECOWAS court, based on the African Charter and other extant international documents that affirm people's freedom of speech and human rights, fundamental human rights issues. So the point is not to try to criminalize some of these things, but to pursue, redress in a civil nature. It was the same point that we made during the case of Dele Faro TV, that look, these things should not be criminalized. Look across the world. I mean, look at what look at how Malema. I think Julius Malema in South Africa. Look at how his speech at times is considered to be very extreme. But it doesn't get criminalized. Even all across the world, in the United Kingdom, here in the United States, people say all kinds of things. I mean, the U.S. president has also been described as a criminal, as a matter of fact, by his opponent, and you don't see them going to make it a criminal case. If you want to seek redress, you use the civil procedure, and that is what the DSS ought to have done, and taking the matter all the way. But to criminalize the stuff, and then clamp the guy in jail, is certainly a poor reflection, and it undermines the kind of image that the current DG of SSS is trying to create for the organization, for which many of us have commended him.
Okay, so whilst there has been, we can criticize whether or not the matter was weighty enough for it to have gone to court, but it has now gone to court. The DSS felt that the way to do that, if you have any grounds, is to take a citizen to a court of law and let the court decide if that was really worth anything at all. But the drama now is that he did not appear in court once or twice, and his bail was revoked. Do you think that, first, that allegation should have even come up? Or do you think that it's a valid allegation to raise? I'm just saying. And do you think that the person who is accused, has also conducted himself? Let's not forget that this is also a presidential candidate, somebody who will come and swear by the Nigerian Constitution and swear to uphold it. Do you think that his own conduct, too, has also shown that, this is something that he intends to do, take seriously, should he become president? Just say.
Well, of course, so the judge is the one that is running this matter, and we can't second guess, the fact that he has the authority, he has the gavel, the court has the gavel, and I don't want to go into those details, not being a lawyer, myself, but I don't think that Mr. Sowore has fundamentally done anything that is, deserving of the treatments that we have seen him go through, honestly, and that's my whole point. That yes, the federal government could take the matter to court, but not under the criminal procedure. It ought to be a civil procedure, and they could argue their case and demand for damages, even their cases have been affirmed by court.
Yeah.
But using the civil procedure, using the criminal procedure, I think undermines, issues of fundamental human rights, undermines issues of free speech. You don't want people to be afraid in a democracy to express themselves. While we're not saying that people shouldn't be responsible, but you got to manage that relationship very gingerly, so that you are not seen as trying to criminalize free speach.
I think the clarity has been provided on that you don't have a problem with the court case. It is the manner in which it has been done. I mean, the fact that we're pursuing this as a criminal matter instead of a civil matter is the clarity that is needed. I'm raising this because we also have people who are saying, but the matter is that he jumped bail. So don't we have anything to say to that? Well, Kayla, I know you have one more issue to raise.
Yeah, and we are running out of time.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I don't know if you saw this yesterday, And it's a statement from the Legal Practitioners Privilege Committee, LPPC. They had their 173rd general meeting, and they approved in that meeting the suspension of Chief Mike Ozekome from the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria. This statement by Kabir E. Akande, Esquire, who's the Chief Registrar, Supreme Court of Nigeria Secretary, Legal Practitioners Privileges Committee. And they're saying that this action was taken pursuant to paragraph 26.6 of the guidelines of the conferment of the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria and all matters pertaining to the rank pending the final determination of the disciplinary proceedings presently before the Disciplinary and Ethics Subcommittee of the LPPC and other proceedings. Now, of course, we heard about this case, talked about it some time back. What do you make of this? Is this the right way to go?
Well, I think it is reassuring that the committee, has taken this kind of approach. So it's something that gives some cheer, because I think all of us have been we've witnessed, quite a few, ethical concerns, about some of these things. And we've not had so much of a pushback from the institutions that are responsible for ensuring that lawyers' conduct remains, proper. There are many cases that, frivolous cases that, that abuses or that constitute an abuse of the court process that lawyers still take to court. Elsewhere they would have lost their shirts, for such things. But this action is quite commendable, to say that, look, pending the determination of the ethical issues that are involved, Mr. Ozekome should not use the title. That is, it's a good development, and I hope that we can have more enforcement, of the ethical conduct for lawyers, especially, in the kind of cases, that they bring up, frivolous cases that waste the time of the court, that waste the time of the public, cases that people know has been resolved, has been sorted out. They will bring it afresh, and all kinds of stuff, So yes, it is good, but we want that committee to do more to assure the public that lawyers will be held to a higher standard, because they are ministers in the temple of justice.
I will skip tabs on this issue of justice, and we hope that it is meted all around, especially to those who try to hold our country to ransom. Just also keeping in mind that they're still children. I mean, it's really hard to think about it, Mr. Akande. It's raining in Abuja here, and I imagine also raining in the forest. And we're still yet to get these children back in Oyo State, even the children in Borno as well. But we hope, we continue to hope. But we have to thank you very much, as always, for speaking with us all the way from the United States and finding time to keep tabs on matters developing here in Nigeria. Laolu Akande is the host of Channel Television's Inside Sources and also a former presidential aide.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's where we'll wrap up this beautiful Thursday morning. We hope that you keep warm, stay safe, stay productive. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusuf.
Business Morning is at the top of the hour. I'm Kayla Megwa. Have a great day ahead.